7 stunning climbing flowers that make any home look expensive. Most homeowners spend thousands of dollars trying to make their property look more elegant. Luxury patio furniture, designer outdoor lighting, expensive landscaping, and honestly, most of it still feels incomplete. Because the real secret behind unforgettable homes has very little to do with money. It's atmosphere, the soft movement of flowers climbing across fences during warm summer evenings, the way colorful blooms frame windows beneath golden sunset light, the feeling of stepping into a garden that suddenly feels romantic, peaceful, timeless. And here's what most garden centers never tell you. Some of the most breathtaking climbing flowers in the world are surprisingly easy to grow once established. In fact, a few of these plants can completely transform cheap-looking fences, boring patios, or plain walls into spaces that feel luxurious for years. That changes everything, especially for homeowners tired of spending endless money on high-maintenance landscaping that constantly disappoints them. Now here's where things get interesting. One flower on today's list creates enormous waterfalls of purple blooms that stop people in their tracks. Another produces fragrance so powerful it completely changes the emotional atmosphere around a patio. And one climbing flower near the end looks so elegant. Many people assume it belongs on a private estate. So before you waste another season planting flowers that barely survive summer, stay until number 1. Because these climbing flowers may completely change how you think about luxury gardening forever. There's something emotionally powerful about climbing flowers, more than most people realize. Most gardens stay low to the ground. Flower beds, small shrubs, container plants, but climbing flowers change the entire feeling of a property. Suddenly, fences disappear beneath blooms. Walls soften, entryways become welcoming. Even small homes begin feeling larger, warmer, more alive. And honestly, that matters during a time when so many homeowners feel exhausted by outdoor maintenance. People want beauty now, but they want easier beauty. Not endless work, not constant watering, not expensive annual flowers that disappear every year. Experienced gardeners understand something important. The most unforgettable gardens are not always the most expensive. They're the gardens that create emotion, movement, fragrance, softness, calm. And the climbing flowers in this video do exactly that. So let's start with one of the most elegant flowering vines ever planted beside a home. Number 7. Clematis. Clematis may be one of the most elegant climbing flowers ever created for home gardens. Large velvet-like blooms climbing gracefully across trellises. Soft purple, white, pink, and deep burgundy petals glowing beneath warm evening sunlight. Delicate vines weaving naturally around fences and garden arches while butterflies drift slowly through the flowers. And honestly, very few plants create this level of sophistication with so little space. That matters more than people realize. Because many homeowners think luxurious landscaping requires massive yards and expensive design work. But clematis quietly proves the opposite. Even a simple trellis beside a doorway can suddenly feel like something from a European countryside estate once clematis begins climbing naturally across it. Now here's the hidden truth. Most gardeners fail with clematis because they misunderstand how the plant actually grows. The flowers love sunlight, but the roots prefer cooler conditions. Experienced gardeners understand this changes everything. Once the base of the plant is shaded with mulch stones or companion flowers, clematis often becomes dramatically easier to grow, especially during hot summers when many flowering plants struggle badly. And honestly, that solves one of the biggest frustrations homeowners face every year. Dead flowers, burned foliage, constant replacement costs, exhausting maintenance. Clematis helps create beauty without demanding non-stop attention. Now here's where things get interesting. Clematis creates vertical elegance without overwhelming the garden. Some climbing vines quickly become messy or aggressive, but clematis often feels refined, controlled, sophisticated, almost architectural once mature vines fully spread across a support structure, and the emotional payoff becomes incredible once blooming season arrives. Plain fences suddenly disappear beneath flowers. Small patios begin feeling softer and more romantic. Even boring side yards start looking intentional and professionally designed. That matters more than people realize, because homeowners are not simply planting flowers. They're trying to create emotional atmosphere, comfort, peacefulness, a garden that feels relaxing after stressful days. And clematis quietly creates that transformation. Now here's something many beginner gardeners never hear. Different clematis varieties bloom at different times of the year. Experienced gardeners sometimes combine early season and late season varieties together to extend flowering for months. That changes everything, especially for homeowners wanting long-lasting color instead of short blooming windows. Expert tip: always give clematis strong vertical support early. Trellises, obelisks, fences, and arches work beautifully. And if possible, keep the roots cool while allowing the vines themselves to climb directly into full sunlight. That simple adjustment often makes an enormous difference. Now imagine this: warm summer air moving gently through lavender-colored blooms climbing across a white garden arch. Golden evening light reflecting softly against velvet petals. Butterflies drifting slowly nearby while the breeze moves through surrounding flowers. And suddenly, the garden no longer feels ordinary. It feels peaceful, elegant, timeless. And honestly, we're only getting started. Number 6. Star Jasmine. Star Jasmine transforms ordinary outdoor spaces into something emotionally unforgettable. Tiny white flowers, covering glossy green vines. Soft fragrance drifting slowly through warm evening air. Gentle movement across fences and pergolas while the entire patio suddenly feels calmer, richer, more inviting. And honestly, this plant affects people emotionally almost instantly. That matters more than most homeowners realize, because gardens are not only visual spaces, they're sensory experiences. The scent of flowers lingering near open windows, the feeling of sitting outside during quiet summer evenings surrounded by fragrance, the atmosphere changing completely after sunset, and Star Jasmine excels at all of it. Now here's the problem this plant solves. Many outdoor spaces look attractive during the daytime, but feel lifeless at night. No atmosphere, no softness, no emotional warmth. Star Jasmine changes that almost immediately once blooming begins, especially during warm evenings when the fragrance becomes stronger in cooler air. Experienced gardeners understand something important. Some flowers are seen, others are felt. That changes everything, especially for homeowners wanting their outdoor spaces to feel peaceful instead of simply decorative. Now here's where things get interesting. Star Jasmine stays beautiful, even when it isn't blooming. The glossy evergreen foliage keeps fences, trellises, and walls looking lush for most of the year in warmer climates, which means homeowners get both structure and flowers from a single plant. That becomes incredibly valuable over time, especially compared to expensive annual flowers constantly needing replacement every season. And honestly, that long-term reliability matters more than people realize, because many gardeners eventually become exhausted by high-maintenance landscaping. Constant watering, constant fertilizing, constant replacement. Star Jasmine offers something different, beauty that quietly becomes easier over time. Now here's the hidden truth most beginners never hear. Star Jasmine actually performs best once fully established. During the first growing season, the plant often focuses heavily on root development. Some homeowners become impatient during this stage, but experienced gardeners understand. Patience changes everything with this plant. Once mature vines begin spreading naturally across structures, the transformation becomes dramatic. Suddenly, plain fences disappear beneath glossy green foliage and clusters of white blooms. Simple patios begin feeling softer and more luxurious. Even small backyards start feeling more private and emotionally relaxing. And the emotional payoff becomes enormous during warm summer evenings, especially when outdoor lights softly illuminate the white flowers after sunset. That's when the garden starts feeling almost magical. Expert tip: plant Star Jasmine near seating areas, patios, entryways, or bedroom windows where fragrance can naturally drift through moving air currents. That simple placement decision dramatically increases the emotional impact of the entire garden. And if possible, Give the vines something elegant to climb. Wooden pergolas, white lattice panels, decorative arches, because star jasmine looks especially luxurious once the vines begin naturally wrapping around architectural structures. Now imagine this: a quiet summer evening. Warm air moving gently through soft white flowers climbing across a pergola. Golden outdoor lights glowing softly against glossy green vines. Fragrance drifting slowly across the patio while distant crickets hum quietly in the background. And suddenly, home no longer feels stressful. It feels peaceful, comfortable, almost resort-like. And honestly, most homeowners never realize a single climbing flower can completely change the emotional atmosphere of a property until they experience star jasmine for themselves. But we haven't even reached the most dramatic climbing flower on this list yet. Number 5. Wisteria. Wisteria may be one of the most dramatic climbing flowers ever planted around a home. Massive waterfalls of purple blooms hanging from pergolas like living chandeliers. Long, cascading flower clusters swaying gently in warm spring wind. Twisting vines wrapping naturally around wooden beams while entire walkways disappear beneath color. And honestly, very few flowering vines create this level of visual impact. That matters more than people realize. Because homeowners often spend years trying to create luxury landscaping without understanding one important truth. Luxury gardens create scale, height, drama, emotion, and wisteria accomplishes all four at once. Now here's the hidden truth. Many gardeners become intimidated by wisteria because they hear the plant can grow aggressively. And honestly, that concern is partly true. Without pruning, mature vines can become extremely powerful over time. But experienced gardeners understand something important. Proper training changes everything. Once wisteria is carefully shaped and guided onto strong support structures, it becomes one of the most breathtaking focal points a property can have. Especially during spring bloom season when flowers explode almost overnight. Now here's where things get interesting. Wisteria creates emotional anticipation unlike almost any other climbing flower. For much of the year, the vines grow quietly, almost understated. The structure itself looks elegant, but calm. Then, suddenly, spring arrives, and the entire pergola transforms into enormous waterfalls of lavender-purple blooms. That transformation feels magical, and honestly, that seasonal drama becomes part of the emotional experience homeowners look forward to every single year. Because some flowers bloom, but wisteria creates moments. Moments neighbors stop and stare. Moments guests immediately begin asking questions. Moments homeowners walk outside and suddenly feel proud of the space they created. That emotional payoff matters more than most people realize. Now, here's another reason experienced gardeners love wisteria. The vines themselves become more beautiful with age. Older stems twist and curl naturally around pergolas and arches, creating texture and character even during winter months. That means the plant stays visually interesting year-round, not just during flowering season. And honestly, very few plants offer that combination of flowers, structure, movement, and long-term beauty all at once. Expert tip: always give wisteria an extremely strong support structure from the beginning. Heavy wooden pergolas, thick metal arches, and sturdy beams work best because mature vines become surprisingly heavy over time. And one more thing. Full sunlight dramatically improves blooming. Experienced gardeners understand this too late sometimes. Without enough sun, homeowners often end up with massive vines but very few flowers. That changes everything. Now imagine this. Late afternoon sunlight pouring softly through hanging purple blooms above an outdoor dining space. Warm spring air moving gently through cascading flowers. Soft shadows shifting across the patio while bees hum lazily nearby. And the entire garden suddenly feels expensive, romantic, almost estate-like. And honestly, neighbors never forget gardens like this. But the next flower on this list may be even more emotionally beautiful. Number 4. Climbing roses. Climbing roses create the kind of timeless beauty most homeowners secretly dream about. Soft pink blooms climbing across white garden fences, Deep red roses framing wooden gates beneath golden sunset light, layers of delicate petals glowing softly in warm evening air, while fragrance drifts slowly through the yard. And honestly, very few flowers feel this emotionally powerful. That matters more than people realize, because roses connect deeply with memory. Old family gardens, romantic walkways, peaceful mornings, classic homes surrounded by flowers, and climbing roses transform those emotions into living architecture. Now here's the hidden truth. Most gardeners fail with roses because they choose varieties bred only for appearance. Beautiful blooms, weak plants, constant disease problems, endless spraying. Experienced gardeners understand something important. Modern disease-resistant climbing roses completely change the experience. That changes everything, especially for homeowners tired of exhausting maintenance and expensive chemical treatments every summer. Now here's where things get interesting. Climbing roses soften hard structures better than almost any flowering vine. Plain walls suddenly feel warmer. Metal fences become softer. Even boring garages or sheds start looking elegant once roses begin climbing naturally across them. And honestly, that transformation affects the emotional feeling of an entire property. Because gardens are not only about flowers, they're about atmosphere, comfort, warmth, the feeling of coming home after stressful days and stepping into a space that instantly feels peaceful. And climbing roses create that feeling beautifully. Now here's something most beginner gardeners don't realize. Climbing roses actually become more impressive over time. Young plants may look small during the first year or two, but once mature canes begin spreading horizontally across arches and trellises, flower production often increases dramatically. Experienced gardeners understand this changes everything. The more established the plant becomes, the more breathtaking the display often gets each season. And the emotional payoff becomes enormous during peak bloom periods, especially during early mornings when dew collects softly across the petals. The fragrance becomes stronger. The garden feels quieter, almost timeless. That's the moment many homeowners realize why roses have remained beloved for generations. Now, here's another important reason climbing roses are so powerful in landscape design. They create vertical beauty without feeling wild or chaotic. Many vines grow aggressively and look messy over time, but climbing roses often feel structured, elegant, intentional, especially when carefully trained along arches, fences, or pergolas. That makes the entire garden feel more professionally designed. Expert tip: train new canes horizontally whenever possible. Most beginners allow the stems to grow straight upward, but experienced gardeners understand horizontal growth encourages dramatically more flowers along the entire cane. And honestly, that one simple trick can completely transform how full and luxurious climbing roses eventually look. Also, remember this. Good airflow matters enormously. Avoid overcrowding the vines because healthy circulation helps reduce disease problems naturally. Now imagine this. Warm sunrise, light touching hundreds of soft pink blooms climbing across a white wooden archway. Fresh morning air carrying the scent of roses slowly through the garden. Birds moving quietly overhead while sunlight glows against dew-covered petals. And suddenly, the entire property feels romantic, peaceful, almost storybook-like. And honestly, most homeowners never forget the first time climbing roses fully bloom around their home. But the next flower on this list surprises almost everyone once they see how exotic it looks. Number 3. Passion flower vine. Now this is where things become truly fascinating, because passion flower looks almost unreal once it begins blooming. Exotic purple and white flowers opening like living artwork, intricate patterns radiating outward from the center of each bloom. Tropical-looking vines climbing rapidly across fences while butterflies drift constantly around the flowers. And honestly, most people have never seen anything quite like it. That matters more than people realize. Because many homeowners secretly want gardens that feel unique, unexpected, different from every other yard in the neighborhood. And passion flower delivers exactly that. Now here's the hidden truth. Despite its exotic appearance, many passion flower varieties are surprisingly resilient once established. Some tolerate difficult summer heat remarkably well, Others grow rapidly, even in less than perfect soil conditions. That changes everything, especially for homeowners struggling with extreme temperatures destroying delicate flowers every year. And honestly, that frustration is becoming more common. Scorching summers, dry soil, plants collapsing from heat stress, endless watering. Many gardeners are exhausted, but passion flower quietly solves several of those problems at once. Now here's where things get interesting. Passion flower creates movement inside a garden unlike almost any other climbing vine. The tendrils curl naturally around supports. The vines climb rapidly upward. Butterflies constantly gather around the flowers. Everything about the plant feels alive, dynamics, almost tropical. And that energy completely changes the emotional atmosphere of a space. Suddenly, the garden no longer feels flat or predictable. It feels adventurous, layered, full of motion and life. That matters more than people realize. Because homeowners are not simply planting flowers anymore. They're trying to create experiences, outdoor spaces that feel emotionally different from everyday stress. And passion flower creates exactly that kind of escape. Now here's another fascinating detail experienced gardeners understand. Many passion flower varieties attract pollinators at extraordinary levels. Butterflies, bees, even hummingbirds in certain regions, which means the plant doesn't just create beauty. It creates activity, movement, natural life throughout the garden. And honestly, that changes the emotional feeling of a property dramatically. A garden filled with pollinators always feels more peaceful and alive. Now here's something most people learn too late. Passion flower grows much faster than expected once established. Without proper support, the vines can quickly spread in every direction. Experienced gardeners understand this is actually part of the beauty. Arches, trellises, pergolas, fences. The more vertical space passion flower receives, the more dramatic the visual effect becomes. Expert tip: give passion flower full sunlight whenever possible for the best flowering performance. And if your summers become extremely hot, mulching around the roots can help retain moisture and reduce heat stress naturally. That small adjustment often makes a major difference during peak summer temperatures. Now imagine this: bright, exotic flowers glowing against deep green foliage during warm summer afternoons. Butterflies drifting lazily through the vines while sunlight flickers softly across the petals. The breeze moving gently through curling tendrils climbing higher every week. And suddenly, the garden feels tropical, rare, almost like a hidden botanical retreat. And honestly, most homeowners never expect a flower this dramatic to be so achievable at home. But the next climbing flower may create the boldest color explosion on this entire list. Number 2. Bougainvillea. Bougainvillea may be one of the most visually explosive climbing flowers on Earth. Massive clouds of magenta orange, pink, and deep purple color spilling across walls and balconies. Brilliant blooms glowing intensely beneath hot summer sunlight. Dry evening air moving softly through cascading vines, while entire homes suddenly feel Mediterranean. And honestly, very few plants create this level of dramatic beauty with so little water once established. That matters enormously today, because homeowners everywhere are dealing with rising heat, drought, expensive water bills, and exhausting garden maintenance, and Bougainvillea quietly solves all four. Now here's the hidden truth. Many gardeners accidentally kill Bougainvillea with too much care, too much watering, too much fertilizer, too much attention. Experienced gardeners understand something fascinating about this plant. Bougainvillea often performs best when conditions become slightly tougher. That changes everything, especially for homeowners tired of constantly babysitting delicate flowers through brutal summer heat. Now here's where things get interesting. While many flowering plants collapse beneath scorching sunlight, Bougainvillea keeps exploding with color. Walls disappear beneath blooms. Balconies become tropical focal points. Simple fences suddenly look luxurious once vines begin cascading naturally across them. And honestly, that transformation happens much faster than most people expect. Because Bougainvillea grows aggressively once roots become established. which means homeowners often see dramatic visual changes within a relatively short period of time. That matters more than people realize, because many people become discouraged waiting years for gardens to mature. But bougainvillea rewards patience quickly once it starts thriving. Now here's another reason experienced gardeners love this plant. Bougainvillea creates emotional warmth. Not just beauty, warmth. The intense color palette immediately changes the atmosphere of a property. Bright magenta flowers glowing against white walls, orange blooms reflecting evening sunlight, purple cascades spilling over balconies during hot summer evenings. Everything feels more vibrant, more alive, almost vacation-like. And honestly, that emotional effect becomes powerful for homeowners exhausted by stressful routines and busy schedules. The garden begins feeling like an escape. Now here's something many beginners never realize. The colorful parts people admire are technically not flowers. They're modified leaves called bracts. The true flowers are actually the tiny white centers hidden inside. Experienced gardeners understand. This helps explain why bougainvillea creates such massive displays of color. And once homeowners understand how the plant naturally grows, maintenance becomes dramatically easier. Now here's where things become important. Drainage matters enormously. Bougainvillea hates wet roots, especially during cooler seasons. Too much moisture often creates root problems that weaken flowering dramatically. That changes everything, especially for homeowners unknowingly overwatering the plant while trying to help it grow. Expert tip: plant bougainvillea in the sunniest location possible. Full, direct sunlight produces the strongest flowering performance. And once established, reduce watering slightly instead of constantly soaking the soil. Experienced gardeners understand mild stress often triggers more spectacular blooming. Now imagine this: hot evening air drifting softly through enormous clouds of vivid magenta flowers climbing across white stucco walls. Golden sunset light glowing against cascading vines while shadows stretch slowly across the patio. Palm leaves moving gently nearby as the entire property suddenly feels luxurious, relaxed, almost coastal Mediterranean. And honestly, this is the kind of garden atmosphere people remember for years. But the final climbing flower on this list creates a completely different kind of beauty. Softer, calmer, more timeless than almost anything else homeowners can plant. Number 1. Climbing hydrangea. Most homeowners have never experienced the quiet beauty of climbing hydrangea in a mature garden. And honestly, that's a mistake, because this plant creates one of the most sophisticated luxury garden looks imaginable. Soft white lace-like blooms spreading naturally across stone walls. Rich green foliage climbing beneath shaded trees. Elegant vines slowly transforming plain surfaces into living texture over time. And the emotional atmosphere feels completely different from flashy flowers. Calmer, richer, timeless. That matters more than people realize, because true luxury landscaping often feels restrained rather than overwhelming. And climbing hydrangea masters that balance perfectly. Now here's the hidden truth. This plant requires patience early on. Many gardeners give up too quickly because young vines establish slowly during the first few years. The growth can appear modest at first, sometimes even disappointing, but experienced gardeners understand something powerful. Once mature, climbing hydrangea becomes absolutely breathtaking. That changes everything, especially for homeowners wanting long-term beauty instead of temporary seasonal color. Now here's where things become unforgettable. Climbing hydrangea creates depth and texture unlike almost any other flowering vine. The blooms appear soft and cloud-like against brick, stone, or wood surfaces. The foliage remains lush through summer heat. And mature vines create an elegant, aged garden appearance that expensive landscaping companies spend years trying to imitate artificially. And honestly, very few plants make homes feel this established, this peaceful, this expensive. That emotional payoff becomes enormous over time, because the garden no longer feels newly planted. It begins feeling historic, settled, almost storybook-like. And that atmosphere affects the emotional feeling of the entire property. Now here's another reason experienced gardeners deeply value climbing hydrangea. It thrives beautifully in partial shade. That changes everything, especially for homeowners struggling with darker side yards, shaded fences, or areas where sun-loving flowers constantly fail. While many flowering vines demand blazing sunlight, climbing hydrangea quietly transforms difficult shaded spaces into elegant focal points. And honestly, that solves one of the most frustrating problems many homeowners face. Dead plants in low-light conditions, wasted money, constant replacement, endless disappointment. But climbing hydrangea often thrives where other flowering vines struggle. Now, here's where things get interesting. The plant clings naturally to surfaces as it matures. Stone walls, brick exteriors, wooden structures. The vines slowly attach themselves while creating layers of living texture that become more beautiful every year. Experienced gardeners understand. This changes the emotional character of a garden dramatically. The property no longer feels flat or newly landscaped. It feels aged gracefully, almost European. And, honestly, that timeless elegance never goes out of style. Expert tip: plant climbing hydrangea where it has room to mature slowly over time. Strong walls, shaded pergolas, sturdy fences, and stone surfaces work beautifully. And most importantly, be patient, because patience with this plant is rewarded spectacularly. Now imagine this: cool evening air moving softly beneath white blooms climbing across old stone walls. Shadows stretching slowly through the garden while rich green foliage glows beneath soft golden lighting. Everything feels quiet, elegant, deeply peaceful. And suddenly, home no longer feels ordinary. It feels timeless, ending. And here's the truth most experienced gardeners eventually discover. Luxury gardens are not built through expensive decorations. They're built through plants that create emotion year after year. Movement, fragrance, shade, texture, softness, beauty that slowly transforms ordinary spaces into places people never want to leave. And climbing flowers may be one of the most powerful ways to create that transformation. Because once fences disappear beneath blooms, once patios fill with fragrance, once walls soften beneath living color, a property no longer feels ordinary. It feels alive. So now I want to hear from you. Which climbing flower surprised you the most? And if you could plant only one around your home this year, which one would it be? Drop it in the comments below. And if you want more low-maintenance plants that create stunning gardens with less work, subscribe right now. Because the next video may completely change how you build your garden forever. And honestly, most homeowners spend years trying to make their gardens feel more beautiful without realizing something important. Beauty alone is not enough. The most unforgettable gardens create emotion. The sound of bees moving through flowers during warm summer afternoons. Soft fragrance drifting slowly across patios at sunset. The movement of climbing vines in evening wind while golden light touches the blooms. That feeling changes everything. Because gardens are not simply outdoor spaces anymore. For many people, they become places of peace, places to breathe after stressful days, places where families gather, places where homeowners finally feel proud of what they created. And the climbing flowers in this video do something incredibly powerful. They transform ordinary structures into living beauty. Plain fences become romantic backdrops, boring walls disappear beneath flowers. Simple patios suddenly feel luxurious. And honestly, that transformation matters more than people realize. Especially today, because so many homeowners are exhausted by complicated landscaping advice, constant maintenance, plants dying every season, wasted money. But experienced gardeners understand the real secret. The best gardens are built slowly, one beautiful plant at a time. And once established, many climbing flowers actually become easier and more rewarding every year. That's what makes them so powerful. Not just beauty, long-term beauty. Beauty that grows stronger with time. Now, here's something fascinating. Almost every unforgettable garden in the world has vertical layers. Flowers climbing walls, vines wrapping around pergolas, color rising upward instead of staying trapped at ground level. That creates depth, movement, emotion. And honestly, that single design change can completely transform how expensive a property feels. Even if the yard itself is small. Even if the budget is limited. Now imagine this. Warm summer air moving softly through flowering vines climbing across your patio. Golden sunset light glowing against cascading blooms. Fragrance drifting quietly through the evening while the garden feels calmer than the world outside. And suddenly, home feels different. More peaceful, more beautiful, more alive. That's the true power of climbing flowers. So now I want to ask you something. Which flower on this list would you actually plant around your home? Would it be the romantic elegance of climbing roses? The dramatic waterfalls of wisteria? The tropical beauty of passionflower? Or the timeless sophistication of climbing hydrangea? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you want more low-maintenance plants that create stunning gardens with less work, subscribe right now, because the next video may completely change how you think about gardening forever. And honestly, we're just getting started.